Okay, so reflections. So if you think about a reflection is like you're looking in the mirror and you um, see yourself in the mirror. Or if you put your hand up next to the mirror, like if you touch a mirror, um, or if you put your hand in front of the mirror, it's going to be a reflection. So I really like using patty paper, so I am going to tell each person to get a piece of patty paper from me. So I'm going to get a piece of patty paper, this stuff, and then notice I'm going to trace the y-axis and I'm going to trace the x-axis. And it might actually help if you use a ruler or a straight edge on this one. So I'm going to use a ruler. Just to make it straight. Because if you don't make it straight when you fold in a minute, it's going to mess you up. Now, before you start drawing the triangle, I want you to make sure that it's exactly on top of the x and y axis. Okay, so it's exactly on top. So I'm going to draw point A, I'm going to draw point B, and I'm going to draw point C. And then you could draw the triangle too. Okay, so there's our triangle. And point A is at 1, 3, point B is at 3, 4, and point C is at 4, 1. Okay, now it says to reflect the preimage, remember this is the preimage, over the x-axis. So if I'm going to reflect this over the x-axis, watch what I'm going to do. So I want it to fold over so that it's on this side. So I'm going to actually fold as best as I can. Notice, see that line right there? And let me do it on the back of a piece of paper or on the back of something so you can see through. Okay, I'll just use this. So I'm folding this piece of paper. Notice I want this line to line up on that one. And then you can see, so notice I have that, and I'm going to kind of roll it till I can see that line. So I don't want to fold it right there with that line on the back. I want to roll it until that line is right where I would fold. Okay? And then I'm going to set it down and I'm going to crease it really well. Okay, so now do you see that? So the y-axis is now folded down here. Now what's really nice about this, and remember I should have said this, but you should be using pencil. So this, you can see that triangle is going to end up at these points. But what I want you to do is mark the A, the B, and the C, and then unfold your paper. You will notice that the pencil marks, since you had already marked A, B, and C, when you marked it on the back, it actually transferred some of the pencil. So we can see this is A prime, this is B prime, and this is C prime. Okay, so now I want this triangle to be blue, so I'm going to go ahead and write these points, and that is kind of in my way. So point A prime is at 1, -3. B prime is at 3, -4. And C prime is at 4, -1. Okay, so A prime, B prime, and C prime. Now, I'm going to set the patty paper aside. We'll use it again in a second, so don't throw it away. But I'm going to actually mark these points without the patty paper. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, like on the back side of this paper, do the same thing that we just did and make it transfer. So like I could set it back on here and mark those points so that it transfers pencil again. But I'm gonna do a different method because you won't always have patty paper, or you might not, you just might not always have patty paper. So if my point A is 3 units above, so 1, 2, 3 units above what I'm reflecting over, to find A prime, it needs to be a reflection of that, so it has to be the same distance. So it would be 1, 2, 3 below. So that would be A prime. B is 1, 2, 3, 4 above, so it'd have to be 1, 2, 3, 4 below. And C is 1 above, so it'd have to be 1 below. And that'd be C prime. So you can see that was at 1, -3, B is at 3, -4, C is at 4, -1. So it's the same thing, it's just, or it's the same points, it's just a matter of, do you want to actually reflect it yourself using paper and folding, or do you want to just count over? Okay, this time I'm going to start with that same method, and then we'll go and do the patty paper to make sure we did it correctly. So now this next one says reflect the preimage, so back to the original, over the y-axis and make this triangle green. So if I want to reflect over the y-axis, this would be my line of fold if I was thinking about patty paper. So if it's here, I'm going to reflect it over this way. So if I'm going to reflect over this one is 1 right, so now it needs to be 1 left. And that would be A double prime, because it's the second one we did. Oh, that's really little, sorry. Then B is 1, 2, 3 this way, so it'd have to be 1, 2, 3 on this side, so that'd be B double prime. And then C is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, oh yeah, okay. So this would be C double prime. So that would be my triangle. Okay, now let's check. So if I have this, last time I folded along the x-axis because that's what I was reflecting over. Now I'm going to fold along the y-axis. So again, you want this line for your x-axis to line up. And then I want to kind of roll the paper until I can see that line right there. And that's when I'm going to fold. Oops. Actually, I want to go this way. So now you can see, and I can mark it. Again, it will transfer that pencil over for me. And I can unfold it, and we should see, yep, our points line up. Right there, and right there. So that's A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. Okay, so we knew that A double prime was at -1, 3. B double prime is at -3, 4. And C double prime is at -4, 1. Oops, it's at -4, 1. Okay, so again, you can use patty paper, you can use the, or you can just count. All right, this last one reflects the preimage over the x-axis and the y-axis. So notice we're going to take this triangle, reflect it over the x-axis, which is this one that we already have, and then reflect it over the y-axis. So what we're going to do is we're going to reflect over the x-axis and then reflect over the y-axis. So it's going to end up being down here. You guys see that? So I'm going to use my patty paper. So that means I'm going to fold over the x-axis, would be like that. And then I'm going to fold it over the y-axis. And so it's going to end up being down in this corner, or in this quadrant. Let's mark and see if it transfers it all the way. Yep. Isn't it magical? So then it would be, again, A, B, C. These are triple primes. Okay. So we reflected over the x-axis. Then we're going to reflect over the y-axis, and this one's orange. So it's 1 this way, so it needs to be 1 this way. That would be A triple prime. C is 1, 2, 3, 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then B is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So then my point A triple prime is at -1, -3. B triple prime is at -3, -4. And C triple prime is at -4, -1. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see. Okay, so when we reflected over the x-axis, so when we went from the pre-image to over the x-axis, what do you notice changed? Well, 1 stayed 1, 3 became -3, 3 stayed 3, so that's x stayed x, y changed from +4 to -4, then x stayed x, and y changed to -y. So when reflecting over the x-axis, this will affect the y coordinate. When reflecting over the y-axis, so this one, so look from the pre-image to this one, so 1 became -1, 3 became 3, so x became -x, 4 stayed 4, or y stayed y, 4 became -4, 1 became, or stayed 1. So it affects the x coordinate. And hopefully, and I want you to write this, and you could write it on a post-it if you want to get a post-it from me. No, I'll just write it on the back. So, reflecting over x-axis, xy, and this is the notation that we use, the point xy becomes x, comma, -y. So the only thing that changes is the sign. Okay, then when we reflect over y-axis, the point xy becomes -x, comma, y. So you always have to think about it as, hold on, let me write that sign change. So you always have to think about it as when you're reflecting over the y, so when you're reflecting over the y, it didn't move up or down any. It just moved from, instead of 1 right, it's 1 left. So instead of +1, it's at -1. Instead of +3, it's at -3. Instead of +4, it's at -4. So when you reflect over the y-axis, the x is what changes. When you reflect over the x-axis, the y value is what changes. So when you do this point right here, or this example right here, you reflect over, or reflect the point A, -3, comma, -2 over the x-axis. So if I'm reflecting over the x-axis, the y is going to change signs. So over the y-axis, y becomes -y. So -2 becomes -2, which when you have a negative, it's the same thing as a positive. The opposite of a negative is a positive. When you change the sign of a negative number, it becomes positive. So our new point, oh man, should be -3, +2. -3, +2. All right, so that is example 1 and this up here. Now, I want you to do example 2. One of our goals this topic is to verify experimentally, and I don't remember if that's the exact wording, but be able to show me experimentally how something is reflected. So you're going to get a new piece of patty paper, get new patty paper, and do example 2. And then show me. And then you will get a piece of evidence for this goal. So rather than always having to take a quiz, sometimes if you can show me that you know how to do it, then you will get a piece of evidence. Okay? So get a piece of patty paper.